I think there was a community desire that we reflected in the work that we did.
This is a generational movement, generational effort.
It's not just a pipe dream.
It is great teamwork.
Trails seem to beget more trails.
When you think about what a trail is in reality, it's infrastructure, but what really brings a trail to life is the people.
What this becomes is community-led, community-driven.
I never thought we wouldn't succeed.
There was not that competition and rivalry and turf fighting that bedevils most coalitions. The thing that brought them together was a joint proposal to the federal government for a large federal grant to fund 10 different trail segments that were part of a large trail network.
At the William Penn Foundation, we were funding multiple trail efforts in this 2-state region, 9-county region, and it became apparent that some collaboration was beginning to happen and that we didn't cause to happen. That was something we really wanted to encourage.
We were all doing similar things in different ways. To find that shared vision amongst diverse perspectives, I think is a really special thing that speaks to the power of trails to unite people in a shared goal.
I remember us talking about those concentric circles of engagement. Do you remember that? So to go beyond the people who were just building the trails to thinking about who are maybe not so comfortably in the conservation or the active transportation space.
The power of coming together as a coalition was that not only were we getting the money, but we could also start to really think and act collectively. It was the William Penn Foundation that saw value in that and chose to invest.
It's appealing to have a group of organizations working on something and have a strategy for advancing the work. You know then that the work is likely going to be more efficient.
One thing I'll say about our early governance is that the steering committee that was sort of the governing or leadership group was representative, at least to some degree. It was really about having people in the room who were involved in the project work, and then people who wanted to get more involved just kept showing up. If people want to participate, we'll just increase the number of seats.
It's a broad-based coalition, and I think that being able to show that there's representation both in the urban core and in the suburbs and in rural areas. Every single part of the region is represented is really important, and that's meaningful to everyone in the sort of decision-making positions.
I think that the shared vision is a big part of that too.
I can say from the William Penn Foundation perspective, we've had this inclination that collaboration was good and regional was good, and then having third-party validation of that when the federal government actually approved this was really something that made a big difference to us.
A big push in that federal program was shovel-ready projects. The secret sauce was putting it all together.
Raised everybody up into a whole nother level of effectiveness because we were now speaking with one voice. This wasn't just individual advocates banging on their doors. This was a big group who all had the same idea.
Most parts of the nation have a metropolitan planning organization, and we were really able to leverage our MPO, again, the Delaware Valley Regional Planning Commission, to have an actual network identified. But that really changed the whole conversation, and we also started asking for federal transportation dollars, and that helped continue to fuel the process.
Federal and state money is where trails get built. That money is what pays for the actual big project infrastructure.
Over the years, we have seen the return on investment of our private dollars multiply. I mean, I think it's like a 12-to-1 ROI. From our private funds to the public funds that have been leveraged through that program, supporting planning and design to then leverage, federal construction dollars. The first thing that I think about when I think about long-term investment from the foundation's standpoint is our investment in the operations of the nonprofit organizations doing this work. You need the people power to make everything else happen. Those government funds are sitting there, but they have to be tapped.
I think if we hadn't had William Penn, I think there still is huge opportunity for coalitions to make cases in front of these planning organizations. Those planning organizations are essentially doling out our tax dollars, public funds, and they are largely responding to elected officials and agency officials' priorities.
Part of the feedback loop with those elected officials was actually getting them out to an event, having them hear from their constituents directly that this is great. And we started to hear eventually, these are some of the best days in my life as an elected official.
When we had a champion, we would shoot right up. We would get something that we had been asking for a long time.
I'm that mayor that says yes to trails and trees. As mayor of a city that's in Delaware County, I first was on council and the county was awarding the city of Chester $500,000 for a portion of the trail that I didn't even know was going to exist. And I was angry because all I could think of, $500,000, what could that money be used for in the city of Chester besides a trail? Well, it didn't take long for me to understand. I've converted, I've changed. I'm so excited about trails right now.
I think I remember telling you that you were going to love trails.
I see the magic of trails now. In a city like Chester,
we realize that trails can change how public spaces are used and how private investment can come into the neighborhoods that surround the trails. So we built the Schuylkill Banks Boardwalk in 2014, and it was a game changer. It really uplifted how trails can look and what they mean for people in their communities.
It's really going to be valuable for the residents in all of Delaware County and up and down the waterfront who want to come into Chester, where there's this great revitalization going on.
We see a lot of people who are retired in the suburbs coming back into the city, living right along the trail because they can walk everywhere.
I'm looking forward to an aha moment for my residents, for the people who live in the city. Once everything's connected, everything's mature. Portions of trails are great, but when they all connect, that's the power of a trail system, because it's not a system until it connects.
When I think about maps, I think about storytelling and how we can visualize change over time. So I think just having that as sort of a touch point that tethers people to what's actually happening in the space makes it more real.
We're in a metropolitan region. Philadelphia and Camden are the urban hubs of the region. It made me realize the opportunity to stitch together some of these fragmented projects and some of these more longer distance trails, visualize a regional network. But a big part of that was doing the mapping and showing it on the maps.
We've worked over time to really use those tools to our advantage, both with funders and decision makers, and having the opportunity to leverage it in different ways, I think speaks to the usability of data to cross-cut across different audience types while still getting the message of connectivity to register with them.
The map is central to conveying to everyone what it is that you're envisioning.
It was a tool to help make the case across the region to elected officials, to decision makers, to make trail development a priority in their jurisdictions. Another way to prioritize is filling gaps, the physical gap. You have a trail here, you have a trail there. It's 5 miles here, 5 miles here. You build the half mile in between, suddenly you have an 11-mile trail. There's those gaps, but there are more gaps in capacity and funding of communities.
Having that prioritization allows us to not just fight through obstacles in the early stages of opportunism, and even later where we get a little bit more quantitative about making the case through the gap prioritization. This was Pennsylvania Environmental Council's process of showcasing all these different ways to view these gaps so that we can prioritize the most need first. All of this comes back to relationships and trust building.
When this work started, there was not a proof case for how communications could really move the dial. But what has happened here is it has shown the country the power of branding a concept to to then build support for that concept and to build staying power for that concept.
So the Circuit Trails branding came into effect to help build a foundation where general awareness could continue to build and even sort of stay at an elevated level between points of celebration, between individual moments on the trails.
So when you bring it all together under one brand, it gives people something to rally around. Right. Even though it's bigger, it almost makes it more digestible because it's one thing to pay attention to instead of all the component parts. And it's also, I think, easier for people to then tell their own story. I did this on the circuit, and then you're part of something bigger than you.
I appreciate the stories and the communities reflected. It's heavily diverse. And that's what I believe helped usher me into wanting to do more.
And brings to life or amplifies or lifts up, whatever you want to say, the notion that trails are for everyone. Yes. And it's yours to use.
Well, we got, I think, some really great insight when the Access to Trails report was done. So it was mass marketing, mass branding. We had, bus wraps, and we were on TV. I mean, it was really cool. But then we had this new challenge of there are a lot of other neighborhoods who are touching the circuit trails who aren't aware. What we learned from the report was that people didn't want to be told what to do on the trails. And I think out of that came the My Circuit Trails initiative, which I thought was just so brilliant. And you have one of those videos, right?
I'm in one of the videos, and then I have several of my walk leaders from the program who've done some of the videos.
When we think about what does it take to get people out on trails and to get people outside and comfortable, even if that's something, especially if that's something that you have not done, it can be really overwhelming. The idea of activating the space, creating really relevant programming that's not, it's like micro relevance. And I think about the replicability of this work. That can happen anywhere.
What this becomes is community-led, community-driven, so then we get to go in and say, what do you guys want to do here?
This is worth putting their tax dollars in. This is worth fighting for. This is worth advocating for. This is the good stuff. This is something that is essential to how we live in this region. There are people who are going to fight for this trail network because they know how much it's making a difference in the worst of times and in the best of times. And that joy translates directly to impact and directly to miles on the ground.
The Circuit Trail is definitely a model that other places can learn from. There's this roadmap that's been presented.
The power of coming together as a coalition was that not only were we getting the money, but we could also start to really think and act collectively.
This wasn't just individual advocates banging on their doors. This was a big group who all had the same idea.
We are not working to change small segments of space. We are working to build out a regional network. There are times that are tough, and then there are times that are really fulfilling. And I think has allowed all of us to maintain sort of an eye for the future and not get so bogged down by the present.
I'm so excited about trails right now.
This is worth fighting for. This is worth advocating for. This is the good stuff.